Moses himself mandates agnosticism in the first three commandments, from my perspective. That's what the second commandment's about. Okay, don't put forth any idols or graven images of God. Don't try to conceive of this concept of a creator. It's not part of our capacity. You have a belief in a one God, and you share another belief with someone else who has a belief in a one God, like the creator of everything, then you should have no conflict with each other if you both believe in this concept of a oneness. That's, I think, again, what reinforces the truth of the third commandment of Moses when he's saying, claiming to know God is an act of vanity, because you're claiming to know something that is beyond your ability. All right, this is the first episode of the channel where we're going to be reading the Quran for the first time. All right, so I'm coming from an agnostic perspective. I don't have a religion that I follow. I'm not Christian or Muslim or Jewish. I just want to read this book from a perspective of basically what's it all about, right? Quarter of the planet follows this book, and yet I don't know anything about it. So let's see what it's all about. Let's dive right in, y'all. The Holy Quran holds a special place in the hearts of Muslims worldwide as the divine revelation given to the Prophet Muhammad over a period of approximately 23 years. Its origin can be traced back to the Prophet's experience in the cave of Hira, where he received the first verses from the angel Gabriel. The Prophet Muhammad diligently transmitted the divine message to his followers, who memorized and recorded the verses. After the Prophet's death, the need arose to compile the scattered verses into a single written form to preserve their authenticity. Under the leadership of Uthman ibn Affan, the committee of scholars was appointed to meticulously compile the verses into the Uthmanic Codex, which became the standard version of the Quran. The Quran covers a wide range of topics, including theology, morality, personal conduct, social justice, and laws governing various aspects of life. It is revered for its literary beauty and precise language. Throughout history, the Quran has been a source of spiritual guidance and moral compass for millions of people. It has been recited, studied, and contemplated by scholars and seekers of truth worldwide. By publishing this edition of the Holy Quran, we aim to make this sacred scripture accessible to readers who wish to explore its wisdom and universal wisdom of peace and compassion. May this book deepen our understanding, strengthen our faith, and inspire us to embody its noble teachings in our lives. And there are 114 chapters here in the Quran. So let's just get right into it, right? I'm going to be utilizing this website instead of the book for the purposes of this channel, but I do have these multiple translations because I think that will help us, or it'll help me at least, get a more general understanding of the Quran's intended meaning, right? So, chapter 1. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. Praise be to God, Lord of worlds, the most gracious, the most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. It is you we worship, and upon you we call for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not of those against whom there is anger, nor of those who are misguided. Alright, so, as someone who's agnostic, and I don't really have a concept of what God is. That I can conceive of. When people talk about God in the West, they're talking about a creator, right? I understand that it's a creator, but how am I supposed to conceive of that? Like, what is the concept? There's a lot of different things that people can think of. Like, is it a humanoid type of figure? There's so many different things that they could be thinking about. Obviously that's the different conflict between all the different religions. Everyone's thinking of a different concept of God. Yes, as someone who's agnostic, I kind of lean against claiming that there is any God. Because by claiming that there is a God, I could be potentially, more likely than not, reaffirming the other person's misguided idea of what God is, right? I'm affirming their belief. So as an agnostic, I tend to just be someone who says I don't have a belief in a God. It might even be seen as atheist in some sense, but I don't like the atheist term because it's supposing, again, against a concept that hasn't been defined, right? So rather than say that I believe in it or not, I feel like the important thing is to define what it is. What is God? So far, I don't really have any contention necessarily. There's nothing really to contend with besides the idea of a potential God. I just don't know what it is and what I'm supposed to be conceiving of. I feel like that's one of the errors that Christianity actually makes, is to make too much of a conception of God, right? And I'm basing this standard on the Ten Commandments, or I should say more specifically, the first three commandments. I feel like Moses himself mandates agnosticism in the first three commandments, from my perspective, by the way that the first three commandments are set up. First of all, they're not the first three commandments for no reason. But if we just look at them really just straightforwardly, the first commandment is basically explaining that you can know yourself as a spiritual being, right? The evidence for God is your own consciousness, your own self. That's the evidence that you have for this wider, higher consciousness. God appears to Moses in the form of a burning bush, right? Which is basically setting fire to the concepts that people have about God, the way I understand it. Back in the time, you have to think about people have their idols, right? And so for God to be represented by fire itself, it's just like, look, stop trying to conceive of God. That's what the second commandment's about. Okay, don't put forth any idols or graven images of God. Don't try to conceive of this concept of a creator. It's not part of our capacity. Like, we don't have the capacity to conceive of a creator when our real job is to conceive of ourselves as human beings. And in my perspective, you know what I mean? If you can conceive of yourself as a spiritual being, then you might have a chance of, broadening your understanding of this world. And I don't think we are capable of conceiving of a creator as human beings, right? Which brings us to the third commandment, which is, from my understanding, that claiming to know God itself is an act of vanity. And it's the thing that all of these religious leaders and politicians, I don't want to say all of them necessarily, but so many of them are guilty of. this is the thing that Moses himself was trying to warn people against, was claiming to know God, okay, and making a commandment not to do it. This is where the agnosticism comes in. The second and the third commandment are saying, don't make idols and don't claim to know what God is. That's where all the conflicts are going to come in. If you have a belief in a one God, and you share another belief with someone else who has a belief in a one God, like the creator of everything, then you should have no conflict with each other if you both believe in this concept of a oneness, right? It's only when people start trying to crystallize the concept and say, well, it's only through Jesus can you come through Christ. That's a direct violation of the second commandment. And I don't see how anyone can really see it otherwise. So this is the type of framework that I'm going to be looking at the Quran through, is pretty much that. You know, the first three commandments are setting the framework for my own agnostic perspective on this relationship with this concept that I think is greater than our human understanding, you know, like much greater. We might be able to understand at some point, we might be able to, like, there might be such thing as collective consciousness, or, you know, higher selves, but I don't think even those things would point to a knowledge of the creator itself, or whatever it could be. You know, if there is a creator that is beyond time and space, then all the things that happen within time and space, that's all we're capable of. We're only capable of comprehending what's within time and space. You know, we're not capable of comprehending that things which occur or could occur outside of it. Though I'm not going to discount the existence of that type of unseen reality. I think science itself has confirmed that there is an unseen existence on many levels, not, you know, the quantum level, right? There are the laws of physics themselves that supposedly, you know, this somehow exist. What is it behind these laws? It's intelligence itself. I think that's what the whole point of the Bible in the beginning, when it's saying in the beginning was the word. It's talking about intelligence itself, right? Because through intelligence is how we would comprehend what a word is, right? What a word is, it's pointing to comprehension. So in the beginning was intelligence, consciousness of some sort. And I don't discount that. I believe that it is set forth by Moses in the first three commandments that we as human beings should have an agnostic relationship with this idea of God, right? Which doesn't discount, again, that we are spiritual beings, which means ultimately our consciousness itself is spiritual substance, for lack of a better term. And we have creative potential as human beings, right? So free will exists on the basis of our self-awareness, right? So I think, you know, there's a little caveat there. Self-awareness is pretty much what enables us to exercise, quote unquote, freedom of the will, freedom from our animal natures, I guess you could say, and exercise our creative potential as human beings. And that's when people say that we're created in the image of God. I think they're pointing to this fact that we have creative potential. Okay, I'm eager to see again the way that the Quran is characterizing this concept of Allah or God, depending on what language you speak. But I think that ultimately, as far as God is speaking to a unified type of force that is behind all of creation. I don't even think scientists will disagree with that type of, field. Uh, this conceptual framework that, there is a quantum field. There is or the idea of epigenetics, of even the idea that our consciousness itself can affect the way our genetics operate, right? There's a lot of different things that point to basically a metaphysical underpinning to physical reality, I should say. And the more we understand about physical reality, the more we understand is the less we know. And I think that's an important principle, to carry forward, regardless of what your belief is, if it's be science or religion, that, that maxim of, the more you know is the more that you don't know, right? You understand that you don't know, really. And I think that that's kind of the attitude that should be cultivated, regardless of whether you are a atheist or a theist, if you follow science or, a religious framework, right? Because science really is just still the quest for, truth itself with a capital T, and these quests can lead us, and the religious is the same thing, can lead people in the same direction, as long as it's cultivating an attitude of humility, where it's then it's going to be you're going to be on a true path, in my view, right? And that's, I think, again, what reinforces the truth of the third commandment of Moses, when he's saying, claiming to know God is an act of vanity, because you're claiming to know something that is beyond your ability. And you should just, claim to know what you know and leave it at that. You can know things. You can know even yourself as a spiritual being with creative potential, but claiming to know God is an act of vanity. At least this is from my perspective, which I feel is reinforced by the scriptures themselves, like I said. So, anyway, I think that might be enough for the first video. And if you haven't followed already, please do so. Click notification, all that stuff. See you in the next video.